Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wanted to pull a backend for your mobile app or a website or just another API? You are in the right place. In this video, we are gonna to create our first ASP.NET Core Web API. It's not just another Hello World API. In this video, we are gonna to create a real world task management API step by step. By the end of video, you will gonna understand what a web API is, create your first project, run your first API, and build your first endpoint. Let's get started. Before we start coding, first of all, we have to know what is a web API. Think of a web API as a waiter in a restaurant. For example, a mobile application, a web application send an HTTP request to you. In situations like this, the API get the request, talk to database or talk to the business logic and return the appropriate response. API are everywhere. For example, when you are ordering a food online, when you are logging into your Instagram application, you are using an API. APIs are your communication way. When two applications want to talk to each other, they are using API. When they want to share their data together, they are using API. Let's start coding and create our first ASP.NET Core Web API. Let's do that. Now it's time to create our first ASP.NET Core Web API project. First, create a new project section and type ASP.NET Core Web API and choose the first one and press the next button. And I want to call that task management. And I want to choose this address for saving the location of my project. And press the next button. Here you have to keep the default setting and press the create project. Congratulations, you create your first project. Now it's time to know the project structure. Let's get started. Great, our project is ready. But before we start coding, we have to spend 1 minute and understand the project structure. Here we have program.cs. The program.cs is the application entry point. Every request starts from here. After that, we have controller. Controller contains our API endpoint. And here we have app setting.json. In this file, we are saving our setting, our configuration, our connection string in this file. But we will spend more time on this file. Don't worry if everything is not clear yet. Now it's time to run the project and see the output. Here I run the HTTPS. Now you will see, and now you cannot see anything here because you have to do some changes in your program. But if you want to see the first output, you have to type / and the name of your controller. The name of my controller was weather forecast controller, but you have to remove the controller section and after that copy all of the name and paste here. For example, the name of my controller was something like this, weather forecast. And if you press, you will see the output. But if you pay attention, the output is not so beautiful and we need a graphic screen. Okay, for do something like this, I have to explain you a very important point. I want to introduce you Swagger. Swagger is a package that creates a graphic screen for API. It creates a document and test page for all of our API. But in the previous version of ASP.NET Core Web API, Swagger was installed and was included by default. But in the newer version, we don't have that. For adding the Swagger to our project, we have to right-click on the project and choose the Manage Nugget package, or come here and choose the tools, Nugget package manager, and manage Nugget packages for solution. And after that, here, if you see, I have installed before. But if you want, you have to come here and say swashbuckle.asp.NET Core. And after that, let me see that. And after that, choose that and press the install button. But because I have installed that, you can do that in this way. But after that, you need some changes. You have to come here in the program.cs, and first of all, you have to add this 2 line of code. boiler services at endpoint API Explorer and add Swagger Gen. Add Swagger Gen method create a page and create a structure for document our API and test our API. After that, we have to add two line of code at the after var app builder.build. Here, use Swagger and use Swagger UI. Use Swagger, create a Swagger API, OpenAPI endpoint, and use Swagger UI, create a graphic screen. But now, if I want to see the output, I press the HTTPS, and after that, instead of typing weather forecast, I type Swagger. Just type Swagger and press the button. Now you will see something different. Now it's more beautiful, it's better, and now you can check the output. Here, open this and just press the try it out and press the execute. Now you will see the output. Now you can see the request URL, the curl, the status code, the details, the response, and everything is so fantastic. Now it's time to create our own controller and know what is a status code, what is get, what is post, what is put, and what is delete. Let's get started. Now it's time to create our own first controller. For this reason, I have removed the weather forecast controller, and you can also remove weather forecast controller because it's not so good. Here I come here and I want to add my first controller. Just right click on the folder controllers and choose the add, and after that controller. Here choose API controller empty. Here we have a conventional name. It has two parts. The first part, the name of controller, and after that the controller section. Here I want to name that, for example, tasks controller. Here, if you press add, and now you are a very empty endpoint. When you are creating a controller, now you don't have nothing in your Swagger. Why? Because I don't have any endpoint. If I press, now you can see I have nothing in the output because I don't have any endpoint. Here I want to create my first endpoint, and my first endpoint is a get. When you want to get the data from another application through your API, use the keyword HTTP get in the open and close bracket. Here, after that, you have to use your access modifier. My access modifier is public. After that, use IActionResult. I will explain you what is IActionResult, because IActionResult is the type of our output of our method. And after that, you have to call that, for example, I want to call that get all task. Okay, open and close parenthesis and do something like that. Now, I want to just return something like this. For example, return OK. You have to use OK or not found or do something like this. OK is a method in IActionResult. Open, close, and do something like this. For example, here I want to just say I'm creating my first API endpoint. Okay. Now, if you run the project, you will see that in the output. Okay. Just press Swagger. Now I have one endpoint. Did you see what happened? The route is API task. If you come here, you will see the route is after your URL, for example, localhost, your port, and after that is API/controller. Here is the controller, get the name of your controller. For example, I told you in the previous section, the name of controller is task controller, but you have to remove this section, controller, and just keep this, and it's task. But now my route is something like the localhost port /API/task. Now, if you come here and you will see the route is API task. Now I want to use try it out and press execute. Now you will see I'm creating my first API endpoint. Congratulations, you have created your first API endpoint. Now let's close that. And now, because we want to create a list of our project, here we want to create a project. For example, say where are list of tasks. Now create a new list of, for example, here I want to say tasks. Come here. For this reason, I have to create a folder and its model. here I'm come here and say, hey, I want to add a folder. The name is model. I create a project as a model for this controller, and here just type add a class. The name is task, because here I want to create a task, and just press that. And here I just to add some property. Here I want to say the ID and string and name. For example, owner. And it's a very basic model. Here, come here, and now I have task. Task. Sorry, task. Yes, task. But it's not a good name, because in ASP.NET Core we are using task for async and await. For this reason, I want to change that to tasks, something like this. Tasks model. Okay. Did you see what happened here? Now I want to create a list of task model. For this reason, I want to come here and say, hey, new task model. And here I want to say, hey, the ID is 1. After that, come here. And the name, for example, is create API. And owner is, for example, Hossein. Create another one, for example, Ali. Create API post, create API get, and the ID is 2. Now here I have to return a list of tasks. But here, if I run the program, you will see something like this. But it takes me a lot of time to come here and say, hey, Swagger. But if I press that, you will see it's the default URL. I copy that and come here. In the launch setting, you can save some activity. For example, here I come and say, hey, I want to use URL launch URL. The launch, what's your launch URL? And say, hey, my launch URL is swagger index.html. After that, if I run the program, you will see something different. Now I will go directly to the Swagger page. Here, if I run the try it out execute, you will see here I have a list of tasks. Did you see what happened? You have created your first API endpoint get. First one was a basic string, and the second one a list of your tasks. Now it's time to know what is the HTTP method. Let's do that. Now it's time to explain all of the existing HTTP method. What is an HTTP method? Can you remember the time when you create your own controller? For example, we have used a special keyword HTTP GET. HTTP GET is one of the type in HTTP method. The first type is HTTP GET. We use HTTP GET for getting the data from another API. The second one is HTTP post. When you want to create a new data, we use HTTP post. Suppose you are using a website, and in the website you have to create a user and register in that site. For a situation like this, when you are registering on that site, you are website are using an API for creating you as a user in their database, and they are using API, and the HTTP method is HTTP post, because we are creating a new data in our database. The third one is put. We are using put when we want to updating the existing data. For example, I'm a user and I have created a user in that website with the HTTP post method. Now I have found that my address is completely wrong and I want to change that. Now the API uses the HTTP put method because we want to change the existing data. And the last one is delete, HTTP delete. We use HTTP delete for the time that we want to delete something. For example, suppose we have created our task management application API, and now we want to, for example, and we have finished one task and we want to delete that. And for situation like this, the API use the HTTP delete method because we want to delete some data. But great job! You have created your first ASP.NET Core Web API. In this episode, we understand what is a Web API, create our first project, configure Swagger, create a controller, and build our first API endpoint. In the next episode, we will understand controller and routing in more details, and we will know how ASP.NET Core maps HTTP requests to our method. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel and follow along because we are gonna to build API step by step. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.